Welcome to our session 1 through 3 recap. On this recap, I'm going to aim to get through all 3 of our lessons this week so far in 45 minutes. So you got to bear with me here. We have a lot to cover. If you've missed any of the first sessions and you want a live experience, if you're new, or if you just want to cover things again, I think this is the place to be. Now, some brief reminders, different than our normal morning announcements. Please make sure you get on text with Leo, especially if you're new and you haven't connected with him yet. Leo is your concierge for the event. His job is to guide you through there and get you all the resources you need. So you can text him at 415-688-2045. He is there to be bothered. He wants to be bothered. I've had a lot of people tell me they don't want to bother Leo, but that's what he wants to be. He wants to be bothered. He's there to be bothered. So get a hold of him if you need anything from him at all. Second, make sure you join the Facebook group. This is something, it's really kind of blown up over the last few days. Being able to get in there and access that, you'll be able to actually share your homework on the page. There's a ton of resources in there as well. And honestly, there's just so much that we're covering. And I really like to be able to see the homework that you've done and give some feedback on that as well, as does our lead treatment coordinator, Annie. So being able to get in there and do that, we can't do that if you are on Zoom or if you don't share it to the Facebook group. A little bit of advice, a trick, if you will, if you really don't want to be on Facebook, doesn't hurt to make a pseudonym account. You just have to share with us when you join. You fill out the 3 questions that you use when you essentially registered for the event, and then that will mean you get in, and you can always delete the account after you're done the event. But we're using it as a bit of a public forum, so it's a really good option, and it's the best place to be. Remember as well, you can still watch all of the daily events as replays, as well as get into the Facebook group from pffljumpstartreplays.com. So this will be a condensed version of the course, but I'm going to try to cover as much as I can. So on day 1, we talked about the ways that conventional medical system has failed people in general. We talked about the sick care system instead of the healthcare system. We really don't have a healthcare system. We absolutely have a sick care system. And this is a system that is designed as a last line of defense to deliver treatment to people in need, right? This system is not equipped to deal with disease or illness, yet it is viewed as such. We're consistently viewing it as the answer. We are taught through what just society teaches us not to really worry about our health, because the system is there to fall back on, right? When something goes wrong, we go to the ER, we go to an urgent care clinic. But the problem with this is that it's not really set up for recovery or healing. It's set up entirely for trauma response. I just realized I can make my slides bigger here for you guys and just get through them. Got a little bit carried away there. So the easy answer to a problem here is the conventional medical way. Conventional medicine works to first diagnose you and then treat the symptoms of that disease. So in most cases, it totally ignores what caused that disease in the first place. Conventional medicine is all about band-aid approaches that involve rapid overreactions to a symptom, often addressed with medications or surgery, honestly, just to get you out of their care, to get you out of the area. You have been triaged, move on. The concept of a pill that will fix everything is a falsehood. And this is a belief that does you, the client, the patient, essentially a disservice. So when we talk about a pill that will fix you up, we have to look at that as something that we should totally ignore. It's something that we've probably heard before, right? It's this concept that this is going to get you better, and off we go. But there is no such thing as a pill that can resolve disease. It's just not a thing. All pills are doing is they are masking the problem, and they're permitting you to degenerate in peace. Pills, they shorten your lifespan. They numb your body to problems So your body doesn't know what's going on, and they come with different side effects depending on the drug. They'll even harm organ function. Things like kidneys and livers, essential organs for our well-being and life, can take serious damage from these medications over time. Sometimes it's not even a long time either. Now, people are using drugs in this way as a mask. They take medications when they feel pain or when they're trying to cover up the symptoms of the disease so that they can live a normal life. And the belief is, and the belief system is that we're kind of doing fine, right? Because we're not experiencing that anymore, because the symptom is suppressed and our body, we as a person, just doesn't know anymore what is going on. Now, to me, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's pharmaceutical. It doesn't matter if it's natural, like marijuana or CBD oil. Whatever it is, it's masking the problem. It's trying to chemically change your body or your body's nervous system state. It is doing nothing to fix it on a root level. So what you're doing is you're changing out your sad face for your happy face, and you're going about your day. Remember, and I know I just said this on the previous slide, but this is the real important point here. There is no such thing as a pill that can resolve disease. We also see this concept of surgery being the only option rearing its ugly head more and more and more. And it's becoming a more common and more disturbing go-to solution for chronic pain. This concept of it hurts, let's replace it. And it's a more and more common solution now, and it has a high chance of backfiring. I'm seeing, honestly, in patients I'm working with, about 50-50, whether the surgery was a success or a failure. Sometimes it makes it worse. Sometimes it stays the same. Other times it does make it better. But 50-50 odds are not that great, especially when they're being pushed on people early on in stages of reversible conditions, like any form of arthritis, something that's totally reversible, but that is essentially being used as a trigger word, as a keyword to get you to replace part of your body with something unnatural, which is going to function better and be immune to the inflammation. But the problem is the trauma you experience, everything that comes with it, the long recovery times, creation of scar tissue, and unfortunately, a higher chance of needing additional surgeries later on. Again, I encourage you to post your homework in the Facebook group. I saw a few people in there discussing the fact that their homework, that they've had multiple surgeries, or they've been told that if they have one, they might end up needing another one every few years. It's not a fix. It's another Band-Aid solution, more Band-Aids, slap them on, and everything will be fine. Surgery, though, this to me should be reserved for life-threatening situations. That is the truth. So conventional medicine also ignores building blocks of holistic health. It's very focused on the symptoms. It's not looking at the body as a whole. So mental health, and this was me condensing about 4 or 5 slides onto this, guys, so I apologize for how cluttered it is. Mental health is connected to pain, and that is true. And this is something that is often overlooked. They're considered 2 separate specialities, and that's what they focus on, right? It's if you've got mental health problems, you go to a psychiatrist. If you've got physical problems, you go to the ER, you go to a medical doctor, you go to a pain specialist, whatever it may be. The truth is that mental health and pain walk hand in hand. And without acknowledging that, we ignore potential precursors to chronic disease. It also goes both ways. Poor mental health can lead to inflammation throughout the body and the development of further issues as well. I am a firm believer that people who experience chronic pain are going to develop a form of PTSD over time as a result of that pain. And it's not to be confused with like the same kind of PTSD as, say, going to war, but it's putting fight or flight into your mind. It's making you panic. It's making you stress. And these are things that we have to recognize. We have to understand that these things cannot be separate. The conventional medicine also doesn't really look at what we eat. If you've ever been given food in a hospital setting, you are probably very unhappy with the experience. Poor nutrition can lead to issues in healing, a reduction in electrical potential of your body, nervous system communication, and the development of channelopathies. And I will get to those in a little bit here as well. The body is electric as well. And this is something that is totally ignored most of the time. Conventional medicine may largely ignore the fact that the body is electric, but it can't dispute it. Our cells communicate electrically. So it stands to reason that our body will accept these signals from outside sources as well. Right now, you are watching me on a screen. You are exposing yourself to electromagnetic fields. And EMFs in these environments, they are going to actually affect your cells. They're absorbed by the body, and your cells are going to take on those signals. Now, in a perfect world, we'd be exposed to natural, healthy frequencies from the earth, right? But some of us are in high-rise apartments, right? Some of us are in big cities, and access to technology is so prevalent that you could probably take your phone or your computer and you could search to your wireless connection, you'd find 20 or 30 options. That's all these signals flying around that are not body friendly. And these can impact the body heavily with a slew of health conditions. You can really be hit hard in this sense. Now, this is actually even a recognized condition in Europe called electromagnetic hypersensitivity, and it actually mimics a lot of the signs and symptoms of autoimmune disease. So it's something that we have to be aware of. As an electric body, we are like an antenna drawing in the signals from what we put around us, and we need healthy signals if we are to get better. Conventional medicine is also set up for triage, not long-term care. The medical system is based on a very archaic system of triage, not wellness. And the system really only wants to see you when you're sick because they're only equipped to handle those acute phases of conditions, right? Managing the symptoms could be considered fine if the issue is going to pass in a few days or a few weeks. But if it continues beyond that point, it becomes too challenging to even consider taking it on because the risk of side effects goes up the longer this Band-Aid approach is used. And this is why people get farmed out to specialists to try and find alternative solutions. But those alternative solutions are often more different types of drugs, right? Stuff that a regular doctor wouldn't even know to prescribe. This is something that's new. It's been on the market for, 6 months, and it's showing promise. But then you take it and you're stuck in a loop again, and the same thing. And eventually when that stops working, you need something else. Again, these things short-term could have some value, but long-term, they're really not set up for success or for healing or for caring about people. Specialists are another problem with the conventional medical system. Now, often the first course of action when you get a diagnosis from a medical doctor is to refer you to a specialist. So at this point, we're kind of stuck because the specialist will often not be able to look past their own specialization or the diagnosis to see any connection between the body and your wellness and the condition that you are actually struggling with. Surgical specialists, right? They're going to want to do surgery. And again, I saw people mention that in their homework. They've got appointments with surgical specialists, but they know what's going to be suggested. Rheumatologists, they're going to put you on disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drugs. These drugs are often drugs, by the way, that found their original use in abortions and in fighting cancer. That was their original thing. So radioactive medications to essentially just destroy your immune system so that you don't feel that swelling, you don't have that inflammation anymore. Pain doctors, these are going to put you on pain meds. In best case scenarios, they will not put you on, opiates. They'll put you on over-the-counter medications, but those still by themselves have some terrible side effects. We discussed this in day one. You can go on and you can actually see the side effects of things like Tylenol actually having an effect on the whole nervous system. It's like a 10% chance of it shutting the nervous system down, and medications like ibuprofen having over 300 potential side effects. So even these things that you can just buy anywhere are not really that safe for you. And really, this goes on and on when it comes to the specialists, and none of it works on resolving your actual issues, at least not without creating more issues in its path. And I thought this image was pretty telling here because really it's a sense of silos, right? It's all healthcare is operating in silos, or sick care, I should say. You know, this doctor sees this person and then they send you to this person, but the communication between them is nothing more than notes on a chart. There's no conversations, there's no collaboration. It's just notes on a chart. And the doctor may not even read that unless they're asked to by you or by someone else. Also, specialists, let's face it, they take a long time to get in touch with you. You could be waiting 6 months to a couple of years on wait lists for certain specialists. And most importantly, when it comes to conventional medicine, they don't realize that we are more, right? We are more than just a sack of flesh and blood that is therefore poking, prodding, being analyzed until we are ready to be deemed lucky enough to be a sack of flesh or blood with a diagnosis to be sent to someone else to poke and prod and analyze us until they find some sort of band-aid solution. We need to realize that each of us is made up of trillions of cells, and each one of those cells plays a role in our body's functioning. We need to nurture the cells in order to eliminate the root cause of your pain, improve your body's functioning, and restore you to holistic wellness. That is what we need to do, but we're up against a big, big challenge. So that was the recap of day one, guys. And again, if you want more details, you can absolutely check out the full replay of day one on that website that I mentioned at the beginning, PFFL, jumpstartreplays.com. Now, on to day two. During day two, we discussed the root cause of pain and disease and the aggravators of this. Now, the question I asked people was to think about the concept of why they might not be healing. On a biological level, your body is designed to heal itself. So why is it not healing, right? It has healed for most of your life. When you get sick, you fight it off and you heal. When you get cut, you bleed for a little bit, it scabs over and you heal. We are not fundamentally designed to cease working. We are meant to keep functioning, not to fall apart. So something is standing in the way of recovery. Something is definitely amiss in the world of your body when you're not healing. I want to talk for a bit here about inflammation. And you've probably heard me or others talk about inflammation before. It's not a new thing. It's been around for a very long time. And it's part of the natural healing process during the acute stages of an injury. And although it may be uncomfortable and it may cause us pain and discomfort, in a short term, it actually serves a purpose. But when inflammation turns chronic, that's when we need to start to worry. So the difference between acute and chronic inflammation. So in order to qualify in having chronic inflammation, a doctor will generally tell you that you must have had unrelenting pain for 3 months. This must pass before it can be considered chronic pain. And perhaps even you need to be referred to a specialist first as well to tell you that you have chronic pain. Now, I don't believe that's true. To me, when properly supported, the body should be done with that inflammatory response within 2 to 3 weeks. Even on a cellular level with fractures and things like that, the pain and the discomfort should have gone down a lot by that point. And if it hasn't, then there's something amiss there. Now, if you just look at this image really quickly, you can see the general response of inflammation. Something harmful enters the body. In this case, a sliver of wood enters the body. At which point, pain, warmth, swelling, and redness, these things all flare up to indicate that something is wrong and to signal the immune system to get in there and actually do something about it. Now, I personally think that when this natural inflammatory response occurs for an acute injury or a condition, it's a good thing. It may not feel nice, but it's serving a purpose because we know that it's doing that in order to make it better. Now, inflammation can certainly be something that is a bit of a hot button topic, and a lot of people are talking about it nowadays. I want people to think of inflammation as a scorched earth approach, meaning that your body is burning the area to protect you and summoning your immune system to attack the invading pathogens. So symptoms of inflammation are redness, swelling, heat, pain, and loss of function. Now, note as well that I have the Latin names in there for all of these things. And the reason for that is that all of these symptoms and signs of inflammation have been known since before the ancient Greeks coined them as inflammation to be the signs of this. This is what happens in your body. It's a natural process, and it's what creates this pain. Now, redness is a visual alert to you that something is wrong. If you were to look at your hand and see it's red, then you're going to be like, what is going on with my hand, right? Swelling. This is a cushioning to protect the area from further damage. This makes it harder for things to get in and out, and it keeps the area contained, essentially, like a quarantine. Heat, this is your fire to burn the problem up. Let's set it on fire, turn up the temperature, and get the things in there that aren't supposed to be there gone. And pain, a signal, again, for you to take it easy. This hand hurts so much, I'm not going to be lifting weights with it, am I, right? It's something that's there to trigger that body response. And then loss of function. This is not as common in acute inflammation, but this is another way for your body to shut down use to preserve the area. It can become so swollen and uncomfortable that the function of it doesn't really work as well. And so the body is not really able to accept that you will want to use it. So it's getting to that point. Now, all of these things in acute inflammation, that's fine. But when they become chronic inflammation, they become pretty big disabilities for a lot of people. Chronic pain is actually born out of this strange and misunderstood process in which your body stops the natural healing process from ending in an acute injury. And it's almost like your brain forgot to flip the switch. Sometimes I think that this comes down to pain meds. We talked about masking with medications. And when we turn off those warning signals with medications and the brain thinks it's already shut down that inflammation, but the inflammation continues to run in the background, that is a big problem right there. Inflammation then continues, pain flares up, swelling gets worse, loss of function starts to set in. And in cases of autoimmune disease, the body will actually see this inflammation as a threat, and it will send your immune system to an area with nothing to attack but yourself. So when people are dealing with autoimmune diseases like Crohn's disease, the inflammation is attacking the gut. Hashimoto's, the inflammation is attacking the thyroid. Rheumatoid arthritis, the inflammation is attacking the joints, right? And these things, like conditions ending in itis, they are inflammation. That's all they are. It's inflammation of the something, right? And you just have to know that itis is inflammation, and the other thing is the Latin word for whatever that body part is. So arthro would be joints, right? So it's all kind of connected in that way. So why aren't we healing? Well, inflammation is the answer here. So it is impossible to regenerate in the presence of inflammation. It's not how the body is set to work. Inflammation holds us in that space of protection while the body gets ready to heal, but it doesn't allow us to heal until the inflammation is turned all the way down. Now, we don't know the inflammation is there when we cover it up, though, right? So we take those medications, we do whatever we're going to do to stop feeling that pain, and we forget that it's there. So we trick our body into eventually forgetting about it, and all the while it causes more and more damage. This is an analogy I always bring out to explain this because it makes people really think hard about how we actually care for our bodies. Now, if you imagine you're in your home right now, I imagine most people, if you imagine that you walked into your bedroom and your bed was on fire, like raging fire, you would want to do something about it, whether it was call for help, call 911, right? Or whether you were going to grab a fire extinguisher or throw a bucket of water on the fire, you would try to do something to put it out before your property got damaged to the point where you would no longer have it, before it wouldn't get used. When you're dealing with chronic pain and you're masking that pain, what you're doing is you're walking into a room and you're seeing this flaming bed and you're closing the door and walking away. And it's like that game we play with kids, right? Like, you know, I can't see, if you can't see me, I can't see you. You hide and peekaboo. That's kind of what we're doing here. We're hiding the inflammation and we're pretending it's not there because we're like, well, we don't see it. It's not a problem. But it continues to burn there, right? It's still there, even though you don't have to look at it. And this inflammation continues to burn, it continues to fester, it spreads, and it causes damage because it burns for so long. Now, no one would do this. No one would do this in their house. I don't think anyone, unless they were trying to burn their house down, is going to just leave a fire and forget about it and walk away. But we do this all the time to our bodies. our body tells us something. It says something is wrong, Rob. Your shoulder really hurts. You've done something to your shoulder. You need to figure this out and address it. And if I were to just sit there and throw a few Tylenols back and then say, yeah, I addressed it, the fire is still there. I'm just not feeling it anymore. Eventually, fire spreads, I tell you. And especially when it's gut inflammation, that it will spread all over the body. So we have to be aware that we have to take some responsibility here for actually trying to put the fire out. Now, I also talked about channelopathies, and I've split day 2 up into little subsections just to make it easier to get through the homework section as well. Now, channelopathies are diseases that develop because of defects in ion channels. I promise I'll explain this. These are caused by either genetic or acquired factors. And while genetic mutation can lead to the development of channelopathies, things like inflammation can be a problem here as well. See, cells rely on achieving what we call action potential if they are to effectively replicate and function. And remember, we have trillions of cells in our body, so we have a lot of dependency on this functionality. Now, inflammation will actually lower cell function, drop cellular voltage so that the cells cannot achieve their true action potential, and eventually they will stop trying. In effect, this can actually lead to cell death and in turn to the creation of channelopathies. So let me explain action potential. And in the end, I'm just going to give you a one-line bite about what it means because I don't want to confuse anyone, but I know people want me to cover this topic. So this is a chart of what a cell will go through for achieving action potential. So on point 1, we would experience a stimulus. A stimulus is what we want to experience in order to get the cell to essentially replicate. Now, at point 5 here, and you'll notice it's on both sides, we are in a resting state. This is when a cell does not need to achieve action potential. It is at negative 70 millivolts. So that's a measure of the electricity in a cell. Now, remember I said the body is electric. Conventional medicine may not care about that, but I very much do. At negative 70 millivolts, the resting state of the cell is there. The cell needs to be stimulated to increase its electrical level to the point where it can actually achieve threshold, see that word here, and start its action potential. This means it needs to reach negative 55 millivolts, so it needs some cellular voltage added to it and more energy added to it in order to lift up and actually trigger that regeneration. So let's say we're going here and it gets some stimulation and then it doesn't quite make it to negative 55. Well, it fails and it re-enters this resting state and then it tries again later and hopefully it succeeds. Now, in the case of people that are dealing with issues caused by channelopathies, caused by chronic inflammation, you get a lot of failed initiations. And too many failed initiations mean the cell does not replicate. And eventually it gets flagged as a failed cell, and it's going to be considered death, essentially. So stimulation of these attempts to raise the voltage and reach threshold to initiate cellular function. So in a perfect world, you get to the threshold, action potential is achieved, the cell returns, jumps up, and hits resting state again. That's perfect. That's what we want. So if this is successful, the cell will send its signal. The body continues functioning as normal. Failed initiations, repeatedly failed, can prevent the signals going through the body. So your neuron here is trying to fire a signal off to say, turn chronic pain off for George. And it's not getting through because you're not getting enough voltage to bring your cells to action potential and trigger that signal to go off. In addition, this will block communication totally, but it will also allow the cellular dysfunction to potentially cause cell death and lead into channelopathies if that cell is not destroyed by your body. Issues such as chronic inflammation, lack of hydration, scar tissue, presence of disease that damages cells and beyond. These are all things that will prevent or impede the electrical system from functioning and reaching the required threshold to take on action potential. Okay, so it's a very important concept. The basic thing is, if you are inflamed, your cells are not able to regenerate at the levels they should regenerate. That's my one bite thing. And if they cannot regenerate, that can lead to further conditions and disease. That is what action potential is, basically. But everyone wants me to explain it, and I got a lot of comments and emails asking me to explain it again. So there we go. So these channelopathies will often relate more to disease than pain, but most people that start off with chronic pain will develop one or more autoimmune diseases within about 5 years. And the average number of diagnosed conditions that I see in my patients is 3. The root is all the same, though. It's all in this inflammation to begin that becomes worse as we go. So what counts as channelopathies? So channelopathies include, but are not limited to, conditions such as epilepsy, autoimmune disease, diabetes, heart defects, ataxia, migraines, hyperexplexia. Oh, I hate that one. Blindness, deafness, and peripheral pain syndromes, to name a few. But many, many diseases are being shown more and more to result from channelopathies as a concept. All right, so what about the aggravators? So this was the last thing we covered on day 2. Now, really, to keep it brief, because there's a lot that we can go through here, we likely know already what our aggravators are, right? Aggravators are things that set you off. If you are in chronic pain, you know you'll have good and bad days. And the question is, what is it? What sort of conditions within your environment are setting them off? There's a lot of different things it could be. I'm going to cover a handful of them here, but chances are you already know. And this is part of what I asked people to do for their day 2 homework, was to consider their aggravators. And the people that did, there's a lot of insight into that. And it's one of those things that we almost don't want to answer, because if we answer the question, then we know what's bad for us, and then we have to look at giving that up, or at least reducing it. So let's consider a few here. So medications, these to me count as an aggravator, because what these are often doing is helping us in one way with a cost on the other hand. It's something that we want to look at with the side effects for sure, but it also comes down to the fact that we are blocking the body's pain receptors, and we're making it harder. So that cost, even if you're not experiencing any side effects, is that the body is not trying to deal with the issue at hand because it's numbing itself. It's just enjoying being numb. Over-exercising is another common aggravator. It's really, really easy to get carried away into thinking that we need to exercise like crazy in order to actually get better. But overdoing it is really just as bad, right? So we want to keep a healthy balance of exercise. Toxic relationships. This is always a tricky one. And I'm not telling you to go and divorce your partner or, completely cut your brother off or anything like that. Because whether it's family, friends, coworkers, that guy at the coffee shop that always really annoys you, these are all things that are toxic relationships. And if we foster toxic relationships, if we don't put a stop to them, or we don't look at ways to mitigate them, we will be fostering toxicity in the body, because this is all going to come down to stress and the issues associated with that stress. We also know that poor nutrition is an aggravator. And I know this is one a lot of people bring up. We know what is good for us, right? But are we actually doing it? Are we eating the pizza, or are we eating the salad? It's kind of hard to say, right? It depends on the day. We know what's probably bad. And I'll dive into that a little bit more in the recap of session 3. Exposure to wireless technology is also a huge, huge problem too. We got to remember that our body is electric, right? Hitting it with signals from all of this technology can send us into an aggressive fight or flight mode. And supplements, supplements are often touted as good options for everyone, but it's entirely possible to take too many supplements, or the wrong supplements, or supplement too frequently. But the question is, again, which ones are wrong? If you have if you could open a pharmacy and sell all of these supplements, if you have that many, that is a red flag that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of use in supplements, but it's also possible to cause a lot of harm too. And poor sleep. This can be a huge one too. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Lack of sleep can lead to increased stress on the body, and in turn, it can create more inflammation. All right, on to day 3. We're making good time, everyone. So the Hache protocol, this is what we're really talking about here. And the first 4 elements of it in particular, right? So that's stress reduction, nutrition, fitness, and sleep. Now, this protocol is rooted in improvements to daily life. We got to remember that the choices that we make each and every day will impact our health because they will change the terrain of the body. So the work you do in this course, the choice to, again, eat that salad instead of eating that pizza, to take 15 minutes to yourself each day to kind of de-stress and feel better, do something that's for you, no matter how busy you are, no matter how much you're doing stuff for other people. The decision to go to bed at the same time each night and not stay up a couple hours later because it's the weekend, or to walk to the mailbox instead of driving there. These seemingly small decisions can actually add up to create a massive ripple effect that will literally change the foundation of your fascia, your meridians, your nervous system, and more. You really do have to be the change you wish to see, right? There's a lot of ownership that goes into this. You have to be able to look and make some decisions here. Of course, that's what we're here to help you with, right? That's the goal. But you have to be willing to make those changes if we want to see the success that we're really looking for. And let's face it, you're here because you want that success. So again, the 5 elements of the protocol: stress reduction, nutrition, fitness, sleep, and microcurrent therapy. Microcurrent therapy will be covered in day 4. It gets its whole own day because there's so much to it. It's important to me that we discuss that there's a difference between pillars and interactive elements here. There's often, to me, a colloquial mistake made when talking about the Hache protocol. People will often mention to me, I follow the 5 pillars. But the distinction between pillars and elements is important here. So when we set out to name the protocol, we called it the 5 interactive elements of the Hache protocol because these elements all feed off of one another. Pillars don't need to interact, right? The point of pillars is to hold a building up, like hold a roof up. And buildings can lose a pillar and still stand. And you can see that throughout architectural history, right? A pillar could be knocked over, but the roof's still up. When it comes to the 5 elements of the Hache protocol, if you lose an element, everything begins to descend into chaos. Because if you are not reducing, if you're not sleeping well, for example, right, your circulation will be weakened, making it harder for you to be fit. Your digestion will get messed up, making it harder for you to absorb the nutrients you need. You will start to get stressed because you'll be tired, you'll be forgetting things, you'll have issues, and you'll be concerned about falling asleep again. So once you lose one, every other element is touched. And microcurrent, being that cellular energy, that level of energy that you have in your body that's good for you, that will all be dampened and reduced if these things are not taken care of as well. So the important point here is you lose one of these elements and you are really risking descending into chaos. We can't lose one, say, I'm doing 4 out of 5, I'm fine. We have to be able to look at all of them if we're not getting the resolution we're looking for. So stress reduction. So we all know that stress can have a big impact on our lives, right? Stress is a super important part of life, though. It helps keep us safe. But when stress becomes chronic, much like chronic pain, it absolutely destroys our lives. It can wreck our lives. Speaking from experience, years of chronic anxiety. It took me a long time to get over that. And now look at me, I'm talking to all of you. I had a lot of stage fright for a while, so it's a big achievement for me in that way. But stress, what it actually does, it'll activate the fight or flight response. So if you think about it, if you are put in danger, the fight or flight response is there to shut down inefficient systems, like why do you need to digest right now? You need to run. To improve essential systems, again, heightened senses, and the increased circulation to your extremities so that you can go and get out of dodge, or you can fight and win. Those are the uses of fight or flight. But if you are stressed because you're in pain, which is totally normal, by the way, then you'll be activating that fight or flight response all the time. And if you are concerned with how quickly is this pain going to come back, or, I'm feeling really good today, but when is the pain going to happen? You're going to be living in that fight or flight response mode. Most people in chronic pain have spent so much time in fight or flight that they don't even know they're in fight or flight anymore. And that's the sad truth. Stress, though, this is also going to halt and stall the healing process. Stress puts you in fight or flight mode. Healing is not an essential function. It's a long-term thing we usually do when we're really relaxed and asleep. If we are stressed, we are not healing. So again, if we're spending our lives in pain, which is causing us stress, then the stress is going to affect our sleep, and the sleep is going to stop us healing because we're not sleeping. So it's all cyclical. Stress will also eventually lead to adrenal fatigue, and I touched upon this more in detail in today's lesson. But adrenal fatigue will lead to the development of multiple problems, right? A lot of the time, without the adrenal energy to get through things, we cannot handle the stress of even day-to-day life. And this is when chronic anxiety comes in. The concept of going to the store sets you into a panic because your adrenals are sapped. They're totally drained. Nutrition, element number 2. So everyone knows that we should be eating better. We know what we should and shouldn't eat. Very few of us actually adhere to this knowledge. And I'd be really interested to see what the homework for day 3 says about this. It's important to realize that there is a huge connection between the vagus nerve and our ability to digest. The vagus nerve is called, vagus in Latin means wandering, like wandering around, because it touches so much of your body. This nerve connects your brain to your gut, your lungs, your heart, to everything essential in the middle here that keeps us going, keeps us a person, right? That is actually able to function. Now, if the nutrition is poor, the signals sent by the vagus nerve will be poor as well. And the inflammation will spread from that area. So the connection there is huge, because if you can use the vagus nerve to reduce gut inflammation, then things that you weren't even able to eat before can actually be consumed in a lot of cases. People are able to get that inflammation down, their digestion improves, their body normalizes, the fire's out here, and the fire goes out elsewhere. So it's a huge, huge connection. You can also over or underdo supplements. I talked about this already, but it's important to know that food is the best supplement you can provide. You know, supplements are meant to supplement a diet. They're not meant to replace. You want to be using supplements if you cannot consume the nutrients from food. If you can get it from food, it's going to be way more easily bioavailable to your body, and it's going to be better for you. If you can't, supplements are amazing, again, within moderation. And there is no one-size-fits-all diet for everyone. Really want to drive this point home, because I saw this in a lot of the homework. You are not your diagnosis. Just because this is the fibromyalgia diet or the diet for people on with CRPS, you know, that does not mean the diet is you. You are a person. You are not a disease. It's critical that we recognize that, because we have to look at you as an individual. If I followed any anti-inflammatory diet that was standard, I might die, because I am actually allergic to raw fruits and vegetables, which is terrible, by the way, because I do really love the taste of them. But it will cause my throat to swell up. So I have to be really careful about cooking them and preparing them in different ways. But if I would just follow a diet blindly, I would be causing myself more inflammation, because when you have a reaction like that somewhere here, like at the entry point, that reaction is going to continue in your guts too, right? So we got to pay attention to all of that. There's no one size fits all diet. Fitness. So it can be especially challenging for people in pain to consider exercise as something that they should include, but movement is medicine. People who do light exercise are going to encourage blood flow, reduce muscle weakness, reduce stress, and in general, enhance their healing. And it is critical to realize that exercise does not have to be committing a huge amount of time, but that starting small is actually the best way to begin. Little steps will make big changes, okay? Sleep. Maybe you're like this poor guy in the picture here. You know, if you're not getting good sleep, you feel terrible. Good sleep prevents the onset of brain fog. Many people complain about brain fog all the time, as well as chronic fatigue. These are all typically due to poor sleep. And if that poor sleep tends to come hand in hand with chronic pain, because if you're in pain or you're in discomfort, you're not sleeping well, generally. But the problem with these things is things like brain fog can actually lead to the onset of physical and mental disease. Alzheimer's and issues like that, like it can lead to that because your brain is not detoxing when you sleep, and therefore it's not cleaning things out. And it's also important because our deep healing sleep is where we want to achieve to actually be able to repair and get better. But we have to be able to reach that, which means we have to be able to sleep for so many hours to actually enter that stage and heal. So we need to get a good night's sleep for that. A lack of sleep will also accumulate sleep debt. This is a process that essentially means for every hour of sleep you lack based on what you need, you are borrowing from a line of credit, and you're going to have to pay that back if you ever want to catch up to the point where you're no longer in sleep debt, right? So if you miss an hour of sleep a week, then you're going to be 7 hours in sleep debt. Now, despite how hard that seems to be able to catch up, there are a lot of strategies to kind of catch up on that sleep and make sure you're getting it back, or at least to stop borrowing from that line of credit, because the interest rate is your health. And we really want to cease that, that behavior if we can. Lack of sleep will also affect digestion, stress levels, because it prevents our adrenals from charging back up, our ability to exercise, and it will impact our electrical potential as well, because without sleeping, our cells are less likely to achieve action potential and actually be able to function like cells should. So all of this to say, it's very, very important to look at these as each their own separate thing, but all involved together. Okay, so that is our recap. So what is next? I want you to make sure that you take the time to do your homework if you can. It's a very important part of the process. You've got this workbook here. It was sent to everyone. If you haven't got your workbook, connect with your treatment, not your treatment coordinator, with your concierge, with Leo. Again, I've got to have his contact info on the next page here. I also want to let you know that I would love it if you could post your homework in the Facebook group, because then I can take a look at it. I can see what's going on with you, and hopefully I'll have time to provide some feedback. I've been answering as many as I can each day, and really just taking the time reading them and getting to know what people are dealing with and what they have been dealing with. So there's still time to catch up on the homework as well. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we'll be on to day 4, and we'll be talking about the 5th element of the Hache protocol, which is microcurrent. If you can be at the live event tomorrow, I do have a very special announcement that we are going to be making, and we have a special gift, like $250 value for the first 50 people to register for our new program as well. So be there if you want to be able to take advantage of that. So thank you very much, guys, for joining me for the recap here. If you need help, drop Leo a text, 415-688-2045. If you missed this morning's episode, you probably didn't hear that Leo has been suspended from Facebook. We'll call it Facebook jail for interacting. You know, health things, alternative health things are always picked on by people like Facebook, but it's a great platform to be able to actually socialize. So you can friend Leo on Facebook as well. That's the best option, because then you'll be able to actually message with him. Hopefully he will be out of jail soon, out of Facebook jail. I had someone concerned he was in real jail. And I will make sure that he gets in touch with you there. Make sure to get in that Facebook group, PFFL, jumpstartreplays.com. There's a link on there to join the group. Post your homework there. And if there's anything else you need, please email us, support@painfreeforlife.com. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'm excited. We've got a lot to reveal. Take care. Bye-bye.